This vehicle has a number of names. The manufacturer's designation was the M61. World of Tanks players will know it as the AMX 105, which is also used by some nations. The French often call it the Obusier Automoteur 105 mm Modèle 1950, which loosely translates as howitzer self-propelled 105 mm of model 1950, which is pretty much exactly what it is. Now, what you start off with is basically an AMX 13 light tank. You have the same powertrain, same driver's controls and so on. And you basically, instead of the oscillating turret at the back, you expand it a little bit, raise the rear suspension, and you install a large box with lots of room for ammunition and a 105 mm howitzer. The vehicle itself is actually kind of simple. Artillery back then was still conducted using traditional methods. The only difference was that it was self-propelled and not towed. Today's artillery fire control systems, computers and so on just didn't exist back then. One of the significant differences with the AMX 13, and this is the one thing that really sometimes makes you wonder whether or not it is even based on the same vehicle, is that the chassis does not lean to the rear anymore. The return rollers and idler are all level. If you compare that with an AMX 13 track, you'll see that the upper return is actually at a bit of an angle. Drivetrain AMX 13, you have a 250 horsepower 8-cylinder petrol engine, and that'll bring the thing along at a pretty reasonable 60 kilometers an hour. So shoot and scoot is definitely a possibility with this artillery piece. Driver's located on the left-hand side of the hull, the engine is to his right. The gear shift on the AMX 13s is actually very weird. Instead of your standard stick, it is a sort of a rotating handle. However, the other controls are pretty much the same as you would expect for steering, brakes and acceleration. The gun is simply a modified version of the ground-based 105 mm, no great surprises there. And if we go around to the back, we'll have a quick look at the crew compartment. Access is through either two very large hatch doors in the rear, or the top is semi-open, complete with another hatch for the commander. Ammunition is stowed vertically on each side of the compartment. Ammunition is of the separate loading type with the ammunition projectile and the metal casing stowed separately. The crew consists of the commander, the gun layer and loader. There is a possibility for direct vision on the gunner's side, although his primary sight will be a panoramic sight up through the turret roof. The gun shield is very thin. Actually, the entire armor of the vehicle is fairly thin. It's really just designed to stop shrapnel and other fragmentation from mainly counter-battering. There is a pintle by the commander's cupola so that he can mount a self-defense machine gun if required, or for anti-aircraft purposes. Ordinarily, aiming the gun is a two-person job, with the gunner and assistant gunner each controlling one axis. However, for direct fire, there are controls for both elevation and traverse on the gunner's side. Radio would be mounted on the commander's side on the right front of the vehicle. There is additional stowage on the outside of the vehicle. You can use all the little handrails, or they look like handholds, to tie on bags, duffels, or any other assorted external stowage you may want to add, as long as you didn't mind it getting shot up. The rest of the vehicle is very sparse outside of the ammunition, the gun servicing kit and fire extinguishers and a first aid kit. There's nothing else in here. The large travel lock is similar to that of the AMX light tank. The armor of the vehicle is very thin. The front hull is barely half an inch thick. The tracks are single pin metal with rubber pads. The torsion bar road wheels are 5 singles per side, and so as a result the guide horns are in pairs on the outside of the road wheels. There really isn't very much to this vehicle. It is quite simply an armoured box to transport a howitzer. Simple as.